We're going to have a look now at the 3-year overview, but I know, John, that you took an idea that like you found in your experience, not just in Wicklow Educate Together Centre School, and from discussing with other teachers, like functions, and you thought that you might not be fully convinced that you were happy with students' understanding of functions after coming through 3 years of junior cert, junior cycling, whichever. You kind of asked, what does it mean for a student to understand a function? Great question to kind of thrash around, you know. So you had that conversation and then you worked backwards. So I'm just going to talk people through this a little bit. You were looking at throughout first, second, third, what sort of ideas are planted at that stage, or seeds are sown on that incremental development of knowledge towards a function. So you were looking at the concept and then maybe the content that would help you get there. So from that, you kind of developed a sequence of 6 units. And if I'm right, you kind of mentioned you nearly started at the 6th unit, where you kind of said, well, in 3rd year, you wanted to be working on, and you knew you often have this in 3rd year, the development of understanding in relation of patterns, relationships, and the meaning of a mathematical function. So that was actually your starting point, and you worked back.
We started like that, you know, that was an issue with 5th year students around functions in our experience, and where do we want students to be as regards their learning like you said, at the end of 3rd year going into the start of 5th year, or perhaps 4th year going into the start of 5th year, and literally worked our way back to there, and, you know, used specification and even used the primary school maths curriculum as well to kind of inform the planning there and see where we could kind of best cater for students as regards their understanding with functions.
The first 3 units are 1st year units. The next 2, by the way, R&V is relationships and variables, because you ultimately came around to say functions map back to understanding throughout about relationships and variables, and relationships seem to capture things like patterns, equations, expression, all these sort of things.
In the course,
so that interplay between all those things. So relationships and variables. So R&V stands for relationships and variables. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 1, 2, and 3, I think, are 1st year units, and then 4 and 5 are 2nd year units, and then you have the 6th one, which is a 3rd year unit. So, John, from what I understand, like there are 6 units, and you didn't kind of just say randomly, I'm just going to push, you know, I'm going to space them out this way. You were quite strategic in maybe pushing between relationships and variables 1 and 2. You engaged in work on spatial reasoning, planar shapes, and invariance, and then you went back into more things on relationships and variables. So you kind of had things going on in between units that you thought would support kind of pushing that idea on further.
Exactly. And again, it's another chance for students to see, you know, that all this is interconnected, you know, and that maths is this interconnected body of ideas, rather than like perhaps as before. You know, I certainly taught this way myself with not a huge amount of success, I must say, more kind of maybe isolated topics, you know, and kind of, again, interweave some of these kind of key concepts throughout the year. And like you pointed out there, revisiting those and revisiting maybe in a slightly different vein than the first time they see them.
And then you did some work there on like units 2 and 3 are close together, and you obviously position proportionality there, because it was, I can actually see how the idea of proportionality maybe feeds in then maybe to going into relationships and variables again, because you can have relationships that are proportional and non-proportional.
Exactly.
And that's really cool.